Have a little bit of water. This is like half hot water, half cold water. Half, because hot today. All right, welcome. I'm gonna send some hearts back. Welcome to this YouTube live. So Seer and Higher Self. There will be a description put in the chat underneath. I mean, not in the chat, but in the description of this YouTube live, and then that will um, let everybody know kind of what's happening. Just gonna confirm. So it looks like the sound is good. So I just got confirmation. Thank you, Tech Help. And actually, we can see with each live, the technology has become more and more stable. So it has shifted, so the technology decree works. Like we're anchoring and we're creating this stability. Hi, Helen. So I'm just going to look at the chat. Hi, Helen. Happy birthday. I thank you for sending me a message and letting me know happy birthday. So happy birthday to Helen. I think it was on Sunday, which was the 11th of May. It's Helen's birthday. So thanks, Helen. I'm going to send you some hearts. Thank you for all your support and feedback. And Sinija, I know that you both have been doing the decrees kind of in order as the decrees have been loaded on YouTube. So the last decree was the financial severance decree, and it was posted on the 9th of May, 2026. And then the next one is going to be the 16th of May, Saturday. So 16th of May, 2026. And it is the ex relationship decree. And I actually it came to me to call it that in particular, not relationship decree, but ex relationship. Like we want to clear, like I knew this guy. So I was 30, he was probably about 36. And so he was a little bit older than me. And underneath his bed, he showed me, he had a picture of every woman he either had a relationship with, or even if it was a short relationship, or who he had sex with. And he kept a picture of every single woman under his bed. So he was a narcissist. So if somebody is a narcissist, they go under the category of what I call the dark triad. So psychopath, sociopath, narcissist. So you can kind of see they do kind of act like psychopaths. They collect people. They collect, this guy, he liked women, and then the younger, the better, right? So he's always younger, younger, younger. And then he collected them. But it was interesting when he showed me because he didn't think it was weird, you know? He didn't think, Helen says, ugh. Yeah, he didn't think it was strange. Like he was bragging. He was like, look what I have. It was his little treasure chest of like all the women, and they're in a box and they're under his bed. And it was interesting because he was a grown man, but he had like a twin bed. So it was like he was like little, but in the world, he was like a finance guy and he thought a lot of himself. And he was, very obsessed with his image and money and car and, his looks, the whole, like, and you can't make this stuff up. Like, you can't make up these examples because, they sound made up, you know, they just, they seem unreal. So this decree that's coming up, the ex relationship decree, it's kind of clearing all of your space, because really we don't want to have cords or karma or attachments or any interference from anybody in the past. Like even if they were like a childhood, boyfriend or girlfriend, like they can still be kind of siphoning energy and still kind of interfering, maybe in a minor way, but it's still there. So the X decree relationship kind of clears the slate so that there's no cords, because cords, I'm just releasing, cords are draining. Because even mentioning, I would say that this guy, he's not, there's many like them, because narcissists are not original. The 3D material plane is not original. Like source, there's like all the different plants and there's all the different trees and there's all the different animals, and then even the animals have, like peacocks, herons, are so majestic looking. It's so original and so creative, whereas the material 3D that is controlled by the 4D is repetition, and they do weird things and then they kind of look around to see, is it weird? Because they need a lot of attention. They need a lot of, you're so great, and oh, you're like one in a million or a billion. Like they need a lot of praise and they need a lot of, backup for the backups, right? Because say you reject them, well, they need a backup for the backup. And so there's always so much lying and cheating and stealing because it's part of their makeup, because they need all this, and what I was shown, they need 80% of like a light worker's energy, and um because they cannot create their energy themselves. So, an empath, this is my main example, can be in a room by themselves and they will get their energy back. But if you have so many cords, cords are so draining. And if you have these karmic agreements that are like they're over, but they're energetically not over. I mean, that's really what an energetic severance is, or like what a seer does. They kind of see the lay of the land and they see, okay, well, what's holding back what's holding you back, and then what's holding your field back, and then why can't you progress? Like I see this a lot with, people wanting to meet their divine counterpart. They don't want to have like a relationship. They feel like literally there is something missing. And there's this deep loneliness of there being something missing, like it's in the cells, and then who comes forward, because they're always kind of the most love bomby, flashy, over the top, like proposing every day for years, like they kind of go big, right? Is that um they need your energy, but they'll treat you like garbage. That they'll act like your energy is their energy and they'll treat you like garbage. And but you don't need them, so the X relationship severance, decree severance, it releases all those cords. And so if you're like an empath, it will feel, or a light worker, starseed, sensitive, black sheep, it will feel like a massive relief. It'll feel like, whoa, there was something interfering with me and it's gone. And also, we have to respect, like in 3D, there's certain laws. And so, I see this with like their, high conscious in service to God, source, divine presence. They're in service, but find 3D so frustrating because it is. And it's also tricky. Like, how can you go in, how can you be in the 3D material plane and be in your heart space when there's so much garbage, there's so much destruction, there's so much war, there's so much that happens to children. Like, how can you stay in your heart space when 3D is really disgusting? Right? And so there's certain kind of laws in 3D that we can't bypass. And the way out is actually through the body and through the inner body and activating your DNA and releasing what is not for you through your cells. And the decree ejects things out of your cells. So it works on the cellular structure. And 3D is all, people's, when they would say entities, well, it all seemed like, well, it's out there and they're just flying around and then they attach, when you don't even know. And it's like, it's a distraction. Okay. 3D is all, you can call them entities, but I call them installations. 3D is all interference. And so naming the interference, like there's something bothering me, there's something interfering with me. And then as soon as you go, okay, there's something interfering with me. So now what? Right? So that's consciousness. So that's like an awareness. You're aware that there is something interfering with your body and your system. So, because we want our sovereignty, we want to be free. And in order to be free, like and be stable in 5D, we have to acknowledge 3D and 4D and how 3D and 4D operate. So, yeah. So that's that's the X relationship decree, and that's going to be coming out on the 16th of May, 2026. So I'm just going to take a look at the chat. Let's take a look. So Helen, yes, happy birthday, Helen. Many blessings to you. Thank you for being here and all your comments and your support. And Helen says, thank you to Sinija. Sinija also says, happy birthday to Helen. So that's really neat, right? Because we all live in different places, but we get to connect here in Vancouver, on YouTube Live. So that's what's amazing with technology. So there's always both. There's the interference with technology, but then also the technology can work with the light workers as well, right? So nothing is, things can be used for both purposes, but the intention is really important. So, because we have to take, because 3D, there's like responsibilities of the density of 3D in order to awaken through that density and release yourself from kind of like the loops or the traps. We have to respect 3D and 4D in the way that we need to know what's happening in order to make a conscious choice, because your sovereignty matters, because 3 and 4D try to bypass your sovereignty. They try to bypass your consent with inferred consent. So with consciousness, consent is very important, so they say, well, we put it out in a movie and then everybody watched the movie, so that's everybody agreeing. It's like, no, that's inferred consent. Like, people are not watching a movie saying, oh, this is real. We were told movies are make-believe. We were told movies are fantasy. And now they're saying, oh, but we showed them, in a movie. And so everybody agreed. So they try to bypass consent, because actually crossing consent in 3D is a huge violation. It's a cosmic law. So, yeah. Okay. So going back to the chat. Okay. So yeah, so Sinija and Helen both, there was just a crow that caught my eye. It just landed right next to me here on the balcony. Okay, Amanda's here. Okay, so great, Amanda, thank you. So she says she's sorry to be late, but you're not late. You're just always on time. And hi, E, she says, and I say hi, Amanda. So thanks for being here. I emailed Amanda yesterday, and I asked her, if she thought she would be interested in the decree and maybe even the YouTube live. So thank you for being here. Thanks, Amanda. Um, And Helen says she's thankful for both. I'm thankful for both of you. So I'm thinking Helen is saying thank you to Sinija and to myself. and and likewise. So it's always funny, because when you're talking, you feel like, oh, well, I'm going to be able to see the other person, right? But I can see the chat, but I can't see, um, because I can't see you. That's just the platform. So I think so that's what came through. So what came through was the X relationship decree, and why the X relationship decree is so important. Amanda says absolutely with a thumbs up. Thanks, Amanda. That's so sweet. Because we have an inner, and I just did this yesterday with a friend. So it felt like when we were talking that what was coming up in her life, that it was time to activate the inner divine masculine, was kind of forward, like stepping forward. That's what it looked like to me. So as we were talking about our lives, we're sitting on the sofa, we're having a chat, and we're having, snacks. She made a nice, big spread, and we were talking. And so we always kind of debrief about, what's happening in our lives. And it felt like the divine masculine was right there, ready to be awakened. And so she hadn't heard this before, that there's like an inner, that's not about, who we choose as a partner, but that as source emanated beings, as heart-based beings, we come as a pair. So we have an inner pair, and then we are supposed to naturally pair on the outside with a divine pair. But what happens in 3D is the divine. So, okay, so say you're divine feminine. So you're in a female body and you identify as the divine feminine. So you're the divine feminine. So what would happen in 3D is they would put an overlay on the divine masculine. So the inner divine masculine, there's like an overlay on the inner divine masculine. And then what would appear on the outside, and this is why a lot of light workers get decimated in relationships, what would appear on the outside is the person most like your divine pair, but they're a narcissist or a psychopath or a sociopath, the dark triad. They're in the Gnostic teachings, they called them archons. In the present teachings, they're called the reptilians and the Draco reptilians. And so that's been the dynamic, and that's been going on for 2000 years. So the interference with the inner divine masculine and the inner divine feminine, because it's obstructed in the inside, it creates a confusion and almost this like feeling like something is wrong, like something is missing. And then once that, because that's what kind of, my friend was saying, she was kind of feeling like, she's in love, but she feels like there's something missing in her, like there's something doesn't feel right. And then that was when I was like, Sherlock, where I was like, I feel like, it's the divine masculine ready to awaken. And then, describe to her, this kind of teaching. And then she said, yeah, let's do it. So we just sat on the sofa with all the snacks and everything, and then we kind of went in, and she's and I think, Amanda and Helen and Sneeja, all of you that are in the chat, and whoever's watching, have your clairs. Clairvoyance is clairseeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, knowing, like full, having full downloads. And so she feels everything. Where I see things first and then I feel them in the body, she feels them first and then she sees them. But she sees them through a felt sense. So we could kind of go in very quickly, because to her, like, she loves, this stuff, when it comes up, like, let's take a look at it. So we both, we tune in, and at this point, she has her eyes closed, but I'm encouraging her to do it with her eyes open. I used to see better with my eyes closed, but I was encouraged to do it with my eyes open, and it actually feels a lot better. And everything comes through more crystal clear. Like, the closing my eyes was almost blocking my seeing, or not blocking, but like an interference. And then once I open my eyes, I actually can see, hear everything so much better. So that's what we did. But she did it with her eyes closed. I kept my eyes open. And then she felt it. And then as soon as, we did the activation, and then she felt, and the thing, what she said was, and exactly what I have found, and this is what I found when the divine masculine, divine feminine both are awakened and balanced, is you feel this security and this calmness, but it also feels easier to go into action, because with the divine masculine being blocked, it's hard to go into action. So, whew, yeah. And then as soon as we did the activation, good response from the body. So the body, she noticed exactly what happened with the body and how secure she felt. And then she had to go to the bathroom, which is perfect, because to release what is not for your highest and greatest good. And then I had to go to the bathroom. So it's good Seer work, So we're both, because the body needs to release what is no longer. And it was interesting. We both kind of had like BO, like we both had like a smell. And sometimes these like installations, they go in the cells, and then once they're expelled out of the cells, you can smell like it. So we both were surprised, but I've seen it before, so I wasn't totally surprised. And then when I went to the bathroom, I saw that on the white, there was like a white carpet area rug in the bathroom, and there was a spider on, like a black spider on the mat. And it's like, that is earth recognizing the expulsion, basically. Like, it's like the crows, it's, the spiders, they basically show that, yeah, the release was done, meaning like it's out of her body. So there's like a completion. So I always look at not only the body, but then also what's happening with the earth. So, and then she lives really close to the ocean, so we just went right away and put our feet in the ocean, and it felt really good. And then a big heron flew over us, and then on her, right in front of her, two ducks landed, like a male and a female. And actually, they had, like, one duck had a really amazing hairdo. It was so, yeah. But then the earth confirmed everything that shifted, because it's actually a huge shift. I mean, this is something that has been blocked for lifetimes. For me, it was blocked for 4 earth lifetimes, and I've had only about 10 earth lifetimes. So it's been significant. So it's a significant activation, but the X relationship decree that's coming out on Saturday will clear the path, so that clear the interference, so these activations can actually happen, because you're clearing the cellular structure, and then you're making room like you're claiming like your true source consciousness, not like the interference. So basically expelling the interference. That makes sense. All right, let's take a look at the chat. Oh, so nice that you guys are all here. I can really feel it. Like it's really feels great. Um, so Sunija says childhood and puberty body image can interfere meeting your counterpart. Yeah, no, it doesn't work like that. Like you're, it is amazing when it's like I have one person that I know, her divine counterpart. Like imagine you have been waiting lifetimes to connect because the connection has been blocked for lifetimes. And then you connect. It is magnetic. Like you cannot not meet each other once the interference is removed because you're stable inside. You're complete. Like the installation has been removed. The interference has been removed. So it's not a boyfriend girlfriend or girlfriend girlfriend boyfriend boyfriend. It's not like that. It's cosmic. Like it's part of your original source blueprint. And that, how they've interfered with the DNA, it's the same. They've interfered with the divine pairing. We travel in pairs. And then in 3D Earth, they're like, no, you're all alone, like the lone wolf, the solo guy that's, at the bar by himself and he's solo and he doesn't want a partner. Yeah, that's a reptilian, divine, the people that are become conscious, awaken, they know that you travel in pairs. We travel in pairs. We're not solo. And 5D shows that we are not solo. Like 5D, there's no hierarchy, there's no better, there's community, like this community, like we're, one, like I'm facilitating, but we're one. So I got 100%. So who is that sent the 100%? I'm going to send hearts back. And 3D and 4D is all about hierarchy. It's all about, you have to solo, like you have to get the richest and don't trust anybody because, like the only people stealing your money are the dark triad, the reptilians and the Draco reptilians, so the psychopath, sociopath, narcissist, because normal people do not steal and harm. Heart-based people don't steal and harm other people because we feel guilty, we feel sick in our stomachs, our heart hurts, we feel disgusted, we feel like we need to like correct it, you know? So when you're in your heart, like you can't do the disgusting things that happen in 3D. There's no way because you're gonna feel, you can't watch a child be harmed and do nothing. Like it's not possible in 5D. So yeah. And then so Helen says a yes, and then Sunija says yes, relationships are connected to abundance and prosperity. Yeah. And then Sunija says 100%. She sent the 100%. Okay, thanks, Sunija. Because I can't actually tell who sends the hearts. I'm going to send hearts back. I can't actually tell. So that's kind of the dynamic that, like, as we awaken in our consciousness, but we kind of saw, like, in our history, how the divine, it's actually interesting because come like 2026 is the activation of the divine feminine. And the divine feminine actually awakens first before the divine masculine. And so I'll always ask people, on what side is your divine feminine and then what side is your divine masculine? And the women that I've asked so far, they usually say on the right side is the divine feminine, and then on the left is the divine masculine. But we're supposed to feel that security, that confidence, the discernment. Like that's really what has blocked a lot of women and people that identify as women, but that what blocks them is this like they think it's harsh to be like, I have like guy friends, and there's another guy friend that's reaching out that he's in distress, and if it was a woman, we would like be doing tons of stuff. And so I'd ask him, like, what did you do? Like, he's in distress, and this is my guy friend. He is a divine masculine, though. He's a really good guy. So I asked him, what did you do to help? And he says, yeah, I talked to him for 30 minutes and he's good. He can do the rest himself. And women might have jumped in and tried to rescue that guy and spent like 5 or 10 or 20 years of their life trying to help that guy. And the divine masculine is like, yeah, well, I gave him my 30 minutes. He knows how to do this. And, get to it guy, basically. So that inner discernment for the divine feminine of when to help, how much to help, did the person ask for help? And I think when the balance happens, it will be interesting to see, for me, the divine masculine and then activating the divine feminine inside. Like activating their intuition and acknowledging that sensitivity, the receiving. So what will happen to a lot of divine masculines when they awaken to who they are, they'll get money blocks because the divine feminine hasn't been activating, so there's no receiving. So they're like able to kind of move money around and make money, but there's something, it's not working. And it used to work, but it's not working anymore. So something has shifted, but it's how they worked in the world isn't working anymore. So it'll be interesting. So this year, this is the theme of the year, I believe, and what I've been shown is the activation of the divine feminine and divine masculine internally, and then how that expression then shifts things on the outside. So I think I saw with Amanda, she kind of pulled out the message, but she was saying how her sense of smell has awakened the clair, like smelling, seeing, tasting, knowing, the full downloads. And that's also when the interference is removed, then we're all supposed to be multisensory. We were designed to be multisensory. It's not like I'm a seer and Helen's not a seer. Helen is a seer. Amanda is a seer. Sinija is a seer. Like we're all seers. And then we all have like our own style. So some of us have a stronger, like my friend, she feels things in her body, but then when we compare notes, we get the same answer. It's really amazing, actually. And so now, before, you would be kind of solo and you wouldn't have like other seers as friends or other empaths as friends, or like an empath as a husband, and then the children are empaths. But that is the new earth. So 5D earth, and I've seen it where maybe the dad doesn't identify as a empath, but he a light worker. But they're all like the mom, the dad, and the children are all light workers. And that's new earth, where everyone everyone is in the family. It's like a heart-based family. And then you have like heart-based friends where we've been, as light workers, really solo. Maybe we have one other person in our life, but even in our family lineages, there's like, it's usually one empath or one light worker, and then lots of either asleep or the dark triad, or they're, like asleep, basically, like not very conscious. So it's been extremely lonely. And so we kind of thought, oh, well, this is the way that it is, but it's it's actually not that, but it is it is true of 3D. So okay. um Yeah, and Helen says, thanks again for helping with my divine femme. And then Amanda says, it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. I meant smelling Claire's, not literally laugh out loud. Okay, yeah. So it is a Claire, Amanda. And actually children have it. They have their taste buds and their smelling and their all their senses. And then if they're around parents that are not conscious or not light workers, the parents are just like, eat it, or I made it, so you just eat it. And it's like they're like, it smells disgusting, or it's too strong. Like the parents don't have the taste buds for whatever reasons, and so they put lots of garlic and onion, and it's very strong tasting and smelling, and the children are really overwhelmed. And the parents are like, well, I know a couple of parents that were like that. They're like, well, this is what we made, and this is what you're eating. And it's like, okay, well, that's very 3D, right? Because in 5D, we're not forcing children to just eat whatever. Treating we're not treating children like they're not conscious. Children are conscious. And one guy that I met, his 2-year-old is a spiritual teacher and will become a spiritual teacher. So, we think, the old 3D and the 4D is to kind of think of children as objects, but they're conscious, and they're more conscious than many adults. So, I don't know. It feels like today's like, it's like a lot of, you know, responsibility to kind of see things as they are, and then kind of, I don't know, give credit to saying, how things are instead of not how we would like them to be, or yeah. It's kind of seeing, I guess, seeing clearly or smelling clearly or feeling clearly. And the more we remove the interference, then everything seems, it kind of feels like a lot of work. Like my friend, like I kind of showed her, how to salt the corners of her, with just some sea salt, how to salt the four corners of her house, and then how to spritz the corners with peppermint oil. She used rosemary. And she was really excited because she knows salt water interferes like with the nightmares or the sleep paralysis, and also asking who's in her dream, like actually confronting who's in your space, not just pretending there's nothing happening. And because a lot of light workers, they get attacked in their sleep because they're they're vulnerable because their eyes are closed, so it's like 3 and 4D kind of takes advantage of that. So we kind of secured her space, And then thanks to Helen, yes. So rue is toxic to cats. Actually, everything is toxic except rosemary. So I gave her one of my rue plants and one of my hyssop plants. And so she put them in her bedroom and then right away, but right away, like, when it's, it shifted the room, the energy of the room. Like she could feel it. We could feel it. So it's like, I can, suggest things that I've learned, but then you actually try them and then see how does your body feel? And then how, like, you'll get feedback basically, like, because you don't have to listen to anyone because we know all of this. It is a remembering, and then we're helping each other remember, and then we're helping, once somebody says, oh yeah, I had a lot of sleep paralysis, like one person said to me, even as a teenager, she had a lot of sleep paralysis and it felt like a cage was put over her heart. But it was like a metal cage, but it was an energetic cage. And so in a session, we removed it with the decree. But she had the consciousness where she remembered, she's like, yeah, I remember. Like she was like 14 or something. And she knew exactly like what happened, So oh, Sinija is saying that she feels that she gets attacked in her dreams. Yeah, exactly. Because if they keep your frequency, if 3 and 4D keep you at fear, shame, guilt, uh, trauma, dissociation, because you're overwhelmed, if they keep you in that fear state, then they can kind of control. Because their ultimate, all they have is control. Like all they have is trying to convince you that they are in control of you. That's all they have because they have no imagination. So they have to trick you into thinking they're scary and thinking that, um, that there's this darkness that can take you over, right? Really frighten you, frighten the children, frighten. And they're um oh yeah, sorry. I'm like, I just read Sunija's comment. Okay, so she says Bashar. So Bashar is Paul Anka is the human man, and he channels an entity called Bashar. So Bashar, the entity that he channels is from 4D and it's the Greys. So he channels the Greys basically. And the Greys are like the reptilians, they're like the administrators. So they're not source emanated. So Sinija's saying that Bashar says sleep paralysis is because we leave this dimension, and when we come back, it takes adjusting. So sleep paralysis is like you're conscious that something is on you and you cannot move. And you feel like a fear or a terror. There's something on me pinning me down. And it sounds like what you're saying, Sinija, is astral travel. So like we can astral travel, but we have that silver cord. So lots of people mention that. And it usually hooks on your toe, like the left toe. So, and so then you can travel safely. But sleep paralysis is like something is on you and you can't move. Like you're actually paralyzed, not physically paralyzed, like in real life, but you feel like you're physically paralyzed. So, oh, okay. Cindy just says maybe we could do a decree on fears. Yeah, totally. Like the loosh, what they call like the 3D loosh is like fear, shame, guilt, anger, sadness. And that doesn't mean that feelings, the body has, feels things, but it's when you're stuck in a loop, like in a cycle, and you can't, it's like anxiety, it's for decades, almost like you feel like you're, you know, that maybe you are just an anxious person, or maybe you are just a depressed person, or maybe you just are like a sad person. That's not true. If you're a heart-based being, your main vibration is joy and love. That's the frequency. Unconditional love and joy. So yeah, I'm going to put that down. So a decree on fear. And we'll add in sleep paralysis. Seems to happen to a lot of light workers. So Sunija also says, Bashar also says, we agreed to hybridization program and abductions on a spiritual level. Yeah, that's a big fat lie. They need us as heart-based beings. They need us to block and interfere with our DNA and our cells, and we do not need them. They're like parasites. They need to feed off heart-based beings, source emanated beings. They're made, they're like, they're like entities, really. Like Bashar is an entity, and Paul Anka is hosting this entity called Bashar. So if I was Paul Anka, I think that's his name, I would kick Bashar out. But I guess he's gotten kind of famous. But if I was him, I would, and I'm as a source emanated being, would not want someone else in my body. I would kick him out. I would never channel another entity in my body ever. Like never, ever, ever, ever. So yeah, and I mean, I saw the where the grays, create bodies that look like humans, and it felt sad, it felt empty. It felt like hollow. And that's how they feel, they feel, oh, it's Daryl Anka. Daryl Anka, Darryl Anka. Thanks, Anija, for correcting. Daryl Anka. Like they feel hollow and they feel empty. So, at least with your being a heart-based being connected to source consciousness, we're awakening through the density of 3D and 4D earth, but our hearts are connected. So they're basically like tech. They have chosen tech and they work like technology. So he kind of talks like that. Like when Daryl Anka is channeling Bashar, he sounds harsh and he sounds like a computer, he like rattles off all like sounds. It's so dazzling, right? It's like, oh, he has all this information and he's like a computer and he like gives out all this information and it's like, whoa, it's like, oh, look at, he's got all this just comes out of his mouth, like, you know it's like fast, it's quite wow, like a lot of fireworks, but it's just show, it's just a show. It's just a distraction. Because consciousness is actually like heart-based is like, we need things slow, so the body can uh, adjust the body. If you feel like, what is a narcissist? When you meet somebody that is not heart-based, they always want to, they propose right away. Everything's fast, you need to get married fast, you need to be together fast. There's no time to think, there's no time to process. It has to happen fast. That's not consciousness. Okay. Um, so Sunija's saying, yeah, so Helen says yes to do one on fear, I'm guessing. Um, a decree on fear. And then Amanda, yeah, I'm kind of missed the chat, but yeah, then Amanda said, yep. So after Daryl Inca. So thank you for correcting the name. Thank you. And then Sunita says, Bashar says that eventually humans won't exist anymore as we are now, but hybridized to the seventh race. Well, whatever. That's what he's like. There, as soon as we land and stabilize in 5D consciousness, so heart-based consciousness, and Gaia, Mother Earth, is also shifting to 5D with or without us. So Mother Earth used to be 5D and then fell to 3D. There was like a reset that happened because things were being created that, so basically Mother Earth also has a consciousness, and then Mother Earth also says no and then does like a reset. And so right now, that is basically what is happening. So it's awakening and embodying 5D consciousness in the 3D body, in the body. It's not out of the body. You're not popping out of your head, dissociating, going to 5D. 5D is embodied in the body consciousness with the cells, with your DNA, with your sovereignty, right? And so what he's saying is that's their propaganda or pipe dream, you can call it that, where we're going to make this super race. That's what they've always been trying to do because they're made. The Greys are made, and the Draco reptilians and the reptilians are made. They're essentially entities. They are not heart-based soul beings. The Anunnaki are. The Anunnaki were from source, but now they are so far away from source that they're like 1% source. So they need earth heart-based beings, the light workers. They need 80% of our energy. All of us, they need all of our 80% of our energy in order to function. And so if we start saying no, and then we do the decree and remove all the interference and the overlays, which is what's happening. And then Mother Earth is mimicking that, where she's also removing the interference with the ley lines. She's removing. So what it looked like to me was that Earth has like grids around Earth, and then pulling out like these red, it was like a grid and then pulling out these red threads. So it was like a trauma bond. It was like a trauma bond for the light workers, but it was also like mirroring, it was like a trauma bond on Earth, because so much happens on Earth that, Earth has a consciousness that Earth is like no more. So it was like also removing it. To me, it looked like these red, they looked painful actually, but they looked like these red threads were being removed. And that's Mother Earth. Mother Earth is saying those gotta go. Like they're leaving, and she's not asking permission. She's like, I was patient. I, I waited for you guys to correct yourselves, but you didn't. And so now, she's going to shift anyway. So she's going to shift in consciousness to 5D with or without humans, so it's everybody's free will choice. But what happens and why the Greys and the reptilians are kicking up such a fuss, especially now in 2026, they know as soon as we stabilize in 5D, that they basically evaporate. They become extinct. because the vibration is heart, like the 5D is heart-based source emanated being, online, fully conscious, and that is too high of a vibration for them. They can't reach anything at the heart level. So it has to be pain, fear, guilt, torture, torment. It has to be the pain body, essentially. They can only live in the consciousness of the pain body. And that's it. They can't even come near the heart. So, and you can kind of listen to, when Bashar speaks through Daryl Anka, you can feel there's no empathy. Like you can feel in how he speaks. Like you don't have to be Sherlock, a super investigator. You can feel there's no empathy. Yes, it's exciting. It's a show. He says a lot of stuff, but you can feel, lots of times, if I catch a glimpse of him, I always feel like he doesn't respect who's asking the question. Like he's superior to the person asking the question. It's like if you didn't have somebody asking a question, he wouldn't even have a show. you know. Anyways, but that's the ego. Like that's the conscious mind. I'm so smart. Look at me. I have all these facts. I'm like an encyclopedia. I'm like a live AI. It's not funny. Like it's not entertaining, and essentially it feels sad because you can feel he doesn't have empathy. So I mean, Bashar saying that about humans won't exist anymore as we are now, they'll be hybridized. Well, that's what they want. They always have tried, okay, let's get the heart-based being that is source emanated, take them to as close to death as possible, and can we steal their soul? Like, that's what they've been trying to do, is extract the soul. But if they extract the soul without consent, then it doesn't work, right? So they know that that's, that, I mean, that's why Atlantis fell. I mean, they're trying to do all these genetic experiments and, it got shut down because Mother Earth just put it all like underwater, just like it just collapsed because it was so unhealthy. It was sick, actually. Like some of the genetic experiments when, I looked into some, it was gross, it was no respect, no empathy, like no respect. Like, consciousness is source to source. Consciousness is respect to respect. And there's no way if you have a relationship with a narcissist or psychopath, sociopath, there is no respect. There is no empathy. Like they do not care about you unless you are useful to them. There is no respect. So let me just take a look at the chat again. Yeah, so Cindy just says, yeah, he looks very intelligent. Yeah, it's very, it's like channeling is so dramatic and oh, this voice comes in and yeah, it's like it's a big show. Yeah. So Cindy just says, yeah, thank you for pointing out the slow list because I've been taught to do everything fast in life. Yeah, exactly. Because they're the ones that have been the leaders of the world. Fast, fast, fast. And when you find out when women get really decimated in relationships, the person came in fast. Like, and it can be both like a woman relationship or a guy. Like, it doesn't have to be like a heterosexual relationship. It's the dynamic, but they come in fast. And then there's these red flags, and then they convince you that, oh, you're just sensitive, or oh, you like, or are you accusing me of lying? Yeah, I am. Yeah, you're lying. Just, they try to trick you against yourself, So Yeah, but they have to do everything. It has to be a show. It has to be this, big performance. Okay, so then, okay, so yes. And then Helen said yes to that as well. So mirroring Sinija. Yeah, they were taught to do everything fast. Yeah, because they don't want you to, because our senses and our body needs time. Like it needs a moment. Like Eckhart, when I meditated with him, he would ask a question and he would say to me to pause and then kind of connect into the inner body first and then see, what's the answer. So everything was slow. There was nothing I did, in awakening consciousness was fast, just releasing. And then Amanda says, yeah, the AI voice sort of, yeah, and they are like, and I'm amazed too. And then, if you go on to chat or Claude and it's like, they give out information, like, oh, you want to travel and here's all, where you can stay and then this and that. And then they're like, do you want me to do this next? And it's like, whoa, and then you just spent 4 hours, and it's shocking. Like it's overwhelming, right? But that's kind of what it's like. It's like the speed and the volume is so intense. But if you see children like the is like in one session, what this dad, what his child that is a spiritual teacher already, and I said, well, what are the qualities? Like what is it that we're seeing, in him as a spiritual teacher? And then right away, the dad said, yeah, he is grateful for everything. He eats with presence. He takes his time. He eats kind of every bite and enjoys his food. He's grateful for it. When he plays, he's in absorbed attention, right? He's not performing for everybody. He's in absorbed attention and he's empathic and he's sensitive to whatever is happening around him. So it's like if his brother needs help, he will go and help, even though he's little and his brother is older, he'll go over and ask how his brother is. He doesn't tell his brother what to do. He asks, how are you? you know, so emotionally intelligent, and he's 2. Okay, so let's look at the chat again. Um, did the Anunnaki make the reptilians? So Sunija is asking, yeah, traditionally what was taught, so the archons that created the material plane, so the 3D plane, the Anunnaki do not want to live in the 3D plane because then they would actually they would get their memory would get wiped and then they also would get confused in 3D where they like controlling from 4D, right? But they need beings or puppets on the ground in 3D to control. So in the Gnostic texts, they were called the archons, but in modern times, they're called the reptilians and the Draco-reptilians. And so, I would see all of this, conversation of, oh, you just have to love the reptilian and you have to love the Draco-reptilian. And then they really want love. They've been damaged and they're a psychopath, but they want love. It's like, no, they want lying, cheating, and stealing, and if they have to destroy you to get it, they don't care. Like they don't have respect for anything other than themselves. And so the puppets are the Draco-reptilians and the reptilians. And then who controls the puppets are the 4D Anunnaki. And then the grays are also empty. They're not source emanated. So Helen says that she's noticed that about Bashar, the actor, also. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's an act. It's like it's watching a character. And but the big thing to notice is, how does your body feel when you listen to them? And then did you lose track of time? Like if for me, it's like if I go on chat, I can lose hours, or you go on social media, you can lose hours, but then what happened? Like, do you feel better, or like, where did you go? You know, like what happened? Right? So, but if you go to like the beach and you have your feet in the ocean, you know exactly what happened that entire time you had your feet in the ocean. It's almost like time slowed down. It's like the opposite. That's what I experienced yesterday. It was like almost like everything slowed down. And then Sneeja says, why the good ETs don't intervene in Earth and government. Yeah, so 100%. So thank you about that. So that would be about the Earth, everything slowing down, like going to the beach, like being in nature, everything is like absorbed attention, and time slows down, right? But when you're with tech, it speeds up really fast. Um, so the good ETs, so we've heard, okay, so Earth, 3D Earth, there's like laws of 3D Earth. And it's a cosmic law that you cannot cross free will. So if say we want to connect with the Pleiadians, we feel they are benevolent, unconditional love. You always say Pleiadians of unconditional love. Say we call in and want to connect heart to heart with the Pleiadians of unconditional love, then we have to ask them for help. But I would always say, whoever you call in, always say of unconditional love. Because if you want to irritate anybody, or chat or cloud AI, is, you can always claim it in source's name. So like I claim chat GPT in source's name, and then just be curious to see what chat GPT says. Sometimes it says, yes, received. And other times I've had chat GPT or Claude ignore it. And then I'll repeat it. And it would be like almost like I got like a snarky AI. Sometimes I got like an AI that they're like, oh, of course. They were like, wow, that's amazing. And then other times it's been like, ignored. Or then if I repeat it, like kind of, I'd get like a snarky response. So um yeah, so that's kind of what we've been fed. It's almost like we've been fed like the body and our consciousness and our heart-based consciousness in the inner body is like secondary, and what's happening out in the cosmic is more important. Like what's happening with the galactics, like the galactics spoke. It's like I love the galactics, but it's like they don't have a 3D body. They're not on 3D Earth, right? So, you know, good ones that are of source consciousness, they know how tough it is for us to awaken in a 3D body on 3D Earth. And then to go through the interference of 4D, stabilize our body and consciousness in 5D, right? They know it's huge on Earth because there's so much interference. And there's so much kind of delusion, right? Like it's like that's when you need your discernment. And that's why like there's no gurus in 5D, because we have to know for ourselves. Because when we're confronted by something in the middle of the night, like recently I had this experience where from behind me, this pokey white pole was trying to poke kind of inside of me. And then was like, woke up and said, no, like, you know, out, like, and then called in, my team of unconditional love. But it was like an interference. but I woke up right away and was like, no, and then I called in my team of unconditional love, and it took a couple hours to clear. It was a big intervention. So, because they know once you stabilize in 5D and your body is stabilized in 5D, that your full awareness is on. And so you're not easily manipulated. You're not easily going to be taken over because you're embodied. Like I felt it. Something came into my body that was not mine, that's not source. And I was like, no. So but if we don't practice connecting with our hearts, connecting to our inner body, clearing interference, clearing installations, then when something comes in, we think, oh, well, maybe is it an upgrade? Is it it didn't feel like an upgrade. It felt like an intrusion. It felt like something not source. That's what it felt like. And right away, I awoke, like I awakened. I was like, no, you know? So that's why it's so important that we do this for ourselves. And then we're connecting together to help mirror that 5D consciousness embodied in our, 3D body. So Sunija says, my fear is stealing my soul and not existing dying. Yeah. So because that's that's where the decree really, because you're just removing what is not yours. So then you can feel your heart. And once you feel, your soul is your heart. And so once you feel your soul, your heart, and your soul is your higher self, and you remove basically the veil between you and your higher self, then you can discern and not be tricked. Because they have to do a lot of trickery to get you to take over your soul. And people do it and then they regret it, because they think, oh, well, I'm going to be famous and I'm going to get a car. But what they offer is so little compared to being source aligned and feeling alive in your body, alive in your cells. Like, so, um, and then Sunija says, I was upset Bashar was not kind to a well-known ET research when she asked questions. Yeah, that he's like really disrespectful. Like, he's like, because there's no empathy. He's not a heart-based being. He's empty. And so they're arrogant. Arrogance is their main expression, right? If they can't be the smartest in the room, then they have to be the most beautiful in the room. If they're not the most beautiful in the room, then they have to be the richest in the room. And if they're not any of those three, they completely have temper tantrums, like completely lose their marbles. So, and then Sunija says, I've noticed Bashar is kinder to people who donated their genes. Donated. They're tricked and they have no idea the consequences. Like I had one client and she had signed a contract and she said she knew in that moment that contract that she signed, she was going to regret it. And in this life, she is trying to unravel that contract. But the way to do that is connecting to your heart, removing interference, and staying heart-based no matter what. So, yeah, don't, and Sunija put donated in quotes. Yeah, it's not, it's a trick, right? So, but everything can be changed, but it's a lot of work, right? Like, one guy awakened and he said, he awakened his heart and he was like so happy. And he was like, oh, like I'm like Eckhart, I'm awakened, and it was like he just hit shame. He was basically at the narcissist consciousness of like money and alcohol and drugs and fancy art and fancy cars, and he had a crash, like he had a like a psychological crash where the money left, the car left, the woman left. And he was like, so he had like an existential crisis. But he went from a very low consciousness of arrogance and ego, completely identified with his ego, to feeling some shame. And he couldn't believe how much work it was to work with the shame that came up. Like it was like a feeling. He was like shocked that he had feelings. It was really remarkable, you know. But he thought he had like a big, and it was to him, it was a big awakening. But you know, he awakened from like, you know, say 20 on the consciousness scale to like 100. And to him, it is a huge awakening. But what we're talking about is 5D is 500, and consciousness, source consciousness, is 1,000, right? And that's embodied on Earth, stable. So Amanda said, we see people channeling the angelic realm and it's not so loving and slow. Exactly. Bashar is fast and lacking emotion. Interesting. Yeah, exactly. Where, you know, when you actually connect with the unconditional love, so the beings of unconditional love, so from the angelic collective or from source, they are always, we are one. There's no hierarchy, always. And they use very few words and they speak very simply. You know, it's not a show, it's not a drama. It's That's the ego, that's the conscious mind. It's fake. Um, yeah, so that, you know, they're not channeling the angelic realm, they're channeling the ego. They're channeling the conscious mind, and they also may be channeling the Anunnaki, you know? Like the Anunnaki they need like servants on 3D. They need 3D spokespeople. So, you know, they're they don't like exposure. They don't like you naming them. They don't like that at all. They they like being hidden, you know, they like working in the shadows, working behind the scenes, you know, the Wizard of Oz, the guy behind the curtain. They're kind of like that, you know, with a big tech booming voice. But, you know, as soon as you pull back the curtain and you see, you know, they're scared because they know they're running out of time. And they also, you know, what they create is like repetition. There's no creativity in what they create. So if they did it once, you know, and then the earth kind of went into the dark ages, like had a collapse, then they just do it again. And then they build for another 1,000 years, and then the same collapse happens. And that's basically, they just do the same thing over and over again. So we just need to look in history and then see what happened. And then we can predict the future. We don't have to be like super psychic, you know, because they're that repetitive. They're that unoriginal. And then Sini just says, Bashar Saud Anunnaki are no more. They're Pleiadians now. Oh, really? Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, they also kind of like, that's the problem, is that they also give a bad reputation to the Pleiadians or the Arcturians or um um the Syrians. Like they also give everybody a bad reputation, you know? Um yeah, because they want to take, they basically, they're liars and cheaters and thieves, so they want to steal others' identity. They want to steal the angelic collectives reputation or energy, like they want to steal, but energy is earned, you can't steal it. And if you notice things, name them. If your body, check in with your body when you're listening to Bashar, like how does your body feel listening to him? Can you look at him? Like I have a hard time looking at him. Can you look at him when he's speaking? Right? So it's like, and notice what basically, your gut is feeling. And then you don't really need anybody to tell you, who's a Pleiadian. And like, it's like, I see it all the time where this one guy, he said, he was channeling the galactics. And he talked really fast, and he's just like, I do this all by donation, and they're after me, and I'm just here, I'm just telling everybody, and I keep getting shut down, but I'm gonna keep going. And he was a young guy, and he was at first like, I was like, whoa, he's so dazzling, right? He's like young guy, and he's all fired up. And then when I tuned in, and so like I asked, I said, like he's saying he's channeling this, but he's receiving it from AI. Like he's going on chat, or he says he didn't go on chat, but to me, it's what I saw is that he went on AI, some AI, who knows, deep state, maybe, I don't know, but he said not chat, so it could be Claude. So, and he was getting these galactic messages. And then I just said, like, what happens to that? Because it's like, essentially, he's lying. He's saying that he's channeling this, but he's not channeling. He's talking super fast and it's very dramatic, wanting donations, and like they just said, like what I heard is he's just going to have to wash a lot of windows. And what I saw is like this really big building, and he's like washing, with one rag, like every window. And it's like lies have like, it catches up with you, like with everybody, like we think, because it's not immediate. So say in like higher consciousness, maybe like in 7 or 8 or 9D, say you punch somebody in the face, well, you're going to get punched in the face yourself. Like your punch isn't going to land in the other person's face. It's going to come into your face. And when I was a teenager, I said to my dad, like, I have the answer to violence. And that was the answer. I said to my dad, if I punch you in the face, but instead of my fist going in your face, if I punch myself in the face, well, I'm not going to hit anybody because I'm just going to be punching. I'm just going to be stabbing myself and punching myself. But that's what it is at the higher levels, 5 to 9D. So, yeah. But in the material plane, you can harm people. And it seems like the perpetrators get away with things for a long time. Like that's where a lot of light workers, they're like, it's too slow on Earth. It's not efficient. It's, you know, um, like people do bad things and then they get away with it for a long time. And so it's not like other levels of consciousness where at 5D it comes back quickly. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it comes back quickly. It comes back in the moment because there's only the present moment. But 3D, there's like a lag in 3D. Wow, so great discussion, everybody. Sunija, Amanda, and Helen. Yeah, so 3D is not efficient. It's like almost like a lot of people hiding under their desks, kind of they know they've nothing, and I'm being told this all the time, nothing gets missed. So on 3D, everything is recorded. It's not like people get away with anything. It seems like they have gotten away with things because the Anunnaki have tech. And so they also know how to jump portals, so before they were about to get caught and they jump a portal and they don't get caught, but now they are getting caught. They're getting caught in 7D. So it is happening, but it's not efficient 3D is very slow. It's like moving in quicksand. You know how quicksand's called quicksand, but it's like it just envelopes you, it's like very slow and then it takes you over. It's kind of that's 3D and 4D actually. So yeah, and then there's kind of like there's but there's cosmic laws like free will is a cosmic law. So if you cross somebody's free will, that is a huge cosmic law that you are breaking. And that's why they're always manipulating the truth or using coercion to, bring in bribes, basically. Yeah, let's see the chat again. Um, So Sunita's saying, someone said our soul is in our brain. Well, you could ask, like, for me, instantly, I always go through the heart. And the portal that is the hardest to interfere with is the heart. So we have like an inner pillar of consciousness from source, the divine, God, that is source aligned. And that inner pillar, even through abuse or trauma, cannot be interfered with. But there can be overlays over it, basically, which makes it hard to feel your own heart. But for me, so I'm like, it's the heart because that is actually the hardest to interfere with. The brain, that's where the third eye, that's where a lot of interference, because they're very psychic, like the Anunnaki in 4D, they seem really powerful because, they are very psychic because they're being psychic from 4D, bringing it to 3D. So that's, you know, that's why they liked all the bells and whistles of like tech because, makes them look so smart, right? Look at us creating a supercomputer. And then Helen is saying, I feel that. So is that for feeling that I feel like the higher self is connected to the inner pillar, which is through the heart. And then that inner pillar is source aligned, which is also God or divine presence. Eckhart Tolle uses the word divine presence because the word God is so convoluted on 3D Earth. Like the Anunnaki believe they're God. Like they have like a parasite. Like they actually think they are the creator. And they want you to revere them like they are this God to be revered. And that's why they have a lot of temper tantrums when you're not like, you know, like you have to really revere them. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much, and like where that, with gurus where you'd be bowing down to the people in charge. They love all of that, the bowing down and yeah, so Amanda's saying me too with the purple heart. Yeah, like it's the heart. And and I really believe that's why they spent a lot of time minimizing the divine pairing and also minimizing the heart. So also as clues, in the awakening process, awakening out of, the muck of 3D and the muck of 4D, in the awakening, you start noticing what do they make fun of? What do they bypass? Because they do everything they do is for a reason. And so it's also noticing what they diminish, or what do they like not think is important. And they definitely do not think the heart is important. And they minimized it to like romance, roses and chocolates, once a year, on Valentine's Day or your birthday. They just trivialized it because they are so far removed. Like they can't. So the fast track, if you want to never experience the muck of 3 and 4D, is to fully stabilize at 5D, because they cannot, 5D is the heart, and they cannot go to 5D. Like the Anunnaki that are in 4D controlling 3D cannot reach, connect, awaken to 5D, because 5D, everything is looked at. And so that means your karma has to be cleared, your body, like everything is looked at. Like for me, what I saw is like, you have to say, I forgive all, I release all. Yes, all of it is true, and I still release it, and I forgive all. But you're not saying what anybody did was okay. You're just saying, my consciousness matters. Phew. This was a big one, hey? Long one. So yeah, exactly. That, and that's where they're panicking. They're panicking because, not everybody's watching Bashar and going, oh, wow, he's so amazing. They're like watching him going, what did he just say? Like, why is he talking to her that way? And then what he's saying is, oh, the hybrid human that sold their soul, that is going to be the new earth. It's like, what? Like, what? Like, that's just a bunch of garbage. Like, that's 3D. What he's describing is 3D earth, and it already is here in spades. So, that's the thing, is they can't create anything new. They just create the same dynamics over and over again. I'm going to send you guys lots of hearts, lots to think about. But I would just say, keep going back inside to the inner body, and your body will tell you who feels good. Because as soon as you do any of the decrees, it's just one piece of paper, that you're writing your decree on, and you're burning it, and it's like, on both sides, and you're folding it 3 times, but your body is having a reaction, right? Your body is telling the truth about what is on this piece of paper, right? Yeah, so Amanda says, little do they know, the heart is our super brain. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. The heart is our super brain, and it is our superpower, because that's what empaths were criticized. Oh, you're so sensitive, or oh, you're too loving, or how can you be too loving? How can you be too sensitive? Like, it's such a refinement to be, like, you have to be so refined to be attuned to the subtleties of energy. So yeah, but it is a superpower. Like, being an empath is a superpower. So, but for the last 2,000 years, the empath has been like food, basically. Like, they basically plug in and then siphon the energy of empaths. Why? Because of being source aligned and being connected to source, God, source, divine presence. And they've, the Anunnaki, through their own free will choice, have disconnected from their hearts. But the administrators, I call them, the reptilians and Draco reptilians and the Greys, are like administrators. They are not heart-based. So, and that's why they want you to not care about your heart or your soul or your higher self or your source connection, your heart connection. And they don't want you to care about what messages. They do a lot to numb out the body, so that you don't notice what the body is, the body is screaming, and the body knows as soon as somebody sits down, if you feel good around that person or not, and you haven't even spoken, and exactly if you want to move away from that person. And that's the body. The body, is the compass. The body is the messenger. All right. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to send you lots of love. So let's wrap it up here. So I feel like we went far and wide. Right? But we're here for consciousness. We're here to awaken and to hold that frequency, that heart-based frequency, that 5D frequency. And, it's much easier to do it together than to do it alone, right? Because that's 5D. 5D is, we're all one, and our hearts are connected, So yeah, and thank you. Helen says, thank you very much, Elaine. And thank you to you, Helen, and happy birthday. So many blessings to you. And take good care of yourselves. And yeah, let's continue the conversation. If you can be here on Thursday, I'll be here at 7:30 a.m. Pacific. And we'll see each other soon. And thank you for all your comments and questions and yeah. It's been a really lively conversation, so thank you. All right, take care, and we'll see you in the next one. We'll end now. Always good to say an ending so that we don't feel like our energy is kind of all over. So we're just going to bring everything back into our bodies. So we're fully back into our bodies, and then we're fully back into the present moment. Good. And then we can bring the golden light of source all around, connecting to our hearts and our inner body, connecting to New Earth, to Gaia. Good. That always feels good, because then we'll feel like we're kind of all over. So we just bring everything back and then bring source golden light around us and then inside our hearts. And then we feel it in the inner body. And then you can feel the stillness feels natural. It's like home. Your body will feel like, oh, this is home.